I'm just going to say it. If you are a professional and you are feeling like it's Groundhog's Day, or like you're just living life on autopilot, or if you're just feeling blah, for lack of a better way to explain it, because that's actually the perfect way to explain it, then I am going to, in the next several minutes, tell you exactly why you are probably feeling that way and what you can actually do about it so that you can actually start to feel good again. Do you remember what that feels like? If you do, awesome. If you're like, actually, no, I don't, then thank you for your transparency. I mean, that's probably why you're here. But either way, we are going to talk all about it. And before we dive in, just real quick, I don't like to make this about me because it's about you. But since stranger danger is a real thing, hello, hi, my name is Jonna Renee, and I am an evidence-based certified life coach that specializes in teaching you the how-to when it comes to helping yourself. So this isn't a cookie cutter. This isn't a life hack. This isn't a, just think positive kind of a thing. But this is me helping you and my clients to figure out what the research-backed strategies and techniques are for them so that they can finally take back control of their life. And I'm going to be sharing some of the things with you today. So if you are someone who is feeling, like I mentioned, like it's Groundhog's Day, like you're living life on repeat, like you just feel blah, then it's probably because of one of three of the following reasons, or a combination of these three reasons. Granted, disclaimer. So this is taking into account that there are things that can happen, with brain chemicals and, outside of ourselves, and like those kinds of things, like traumatic experiences. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you are someone who just kind of feels blah and you don't really know why, because you're like, well, on paper everything looks good, and so then you feel bad about not feeling good. If that's you, then this is for you. And so what those three reasons, or the combination of these reasons, are: number one, you have created a life of should. Number two, you are keeping yourself busy as a coping mechanism. And number three, you've outgrown your current life. And so I'm going to explain a little bit more about what I mean by each of those. So taking from the top, you have created a life of shoulds and shouldnts. And so what I mean by this is that you have done all of the things that someone, society, your family, your friends, that person you admire, have told you that you should do, or have insinuated that you should do. Maybe they didn't say it directly, like you should do this, but it was kind of implied. Then you have built this life that, while great for them and maybe even great for you for a while, now isn't working because you're here watching this feeling this way, right? And so when this happens, it's something where it's like, okay, well, this is great and amazing, and also there's got to be more, right? Like, now what? So that's the first reason. The second reason, using busyness as a coping mechanism, this was done probably to protect you from feeling hurt or discomfort in some way, right? Like, you learned that whenever you sit alone, like the feelings and the thoughts that come into your mind are painful and uncomfortable, and in a successful attempt to not experience those things, not feel those feelings, you started to busy yourself, whether that be with your job, your family, hobbies, your career, your fitness, movement, whatever. And this works because you literally don't have time to feel the feels, right? Like, you're always doing the things. And it can fly under the radar, and it often does, because to most, and even to yourself, right? Because let's be honest, sometimes we lie to ourselves. It looks like you're being productive by today's standards, right? You got a lot going on, like, things are going well. So it's not something that you might say, oh, well, actually, where did this come from? This need to feel busy. And that can mean that, there's a disconnect from, what it is that you actually want, because you're just doing all these things to not feel the discomfort, right? And so while that was a coping mechanism that worked at one time, now it's not anymore. The third reason that I want to talk about is that you have outgrown your current life. And so what I mean by that is that you have gotten so good at doing current life that you can do it in your sleep. And you can do it on autopilot, which is probably why it feels like you're on autopilot, like you're waking up to another day of Groundhog's Day, and why you're just moving through life feeling like, well, that's what it is. And so what this means is that, you're not challenging yourself anymore. You're not experiencing any novelty. And so it's something where you're just going through the motions because that's what you've always done. And at the same time, it's not doing the trick anymore. It's kind of like when you start to eat candy, let's say, right? Like at first, that candy bar is going to be real, real sweet. But after time passes, you get used to it and you're like, it's not as sweet anymore. I need something more. And so while that can be used in, sugar addiction, which is not, something that we want, it can also be used and looked at in the situation that we have whenever it comes to, our lives on like a macro scale. It's something where when we keep doing the things and we've gotten so good at doing the things that used to satisfy us, then like they no longer satisfy us. And so it's like, okay, how can I challenge myself more? How can I grow? Right? And so what are the things that you can do in order to do that? So you've created a life based on shoulds or shouldn'ts, both. Using busyness as a coping mechanism, or you've outgrown your current life. So all these are 3 reasons why, people typically tend to feel like they're living life on autopilot, waking up to Groundhog's Day. And all 3 categories relate back to one thing, and that is a lack of a sense of self. And while, you can take steps to feel better that are simple, they aren't always easy. And it's often because when we are thinking about these steps, it's something where, first of all, most people, the general majority of people, know that something's wrong, but they don't know what, which might have been you before you started watching this, right? Like you knew something was off, but you weren't quite sure what it was. When people arrive at this juncture, they're then like, okay, so now I know something's wrong and I know what it is, but what do I do about it? Which we're going to talk about. But what happens once they then know what to do about it is they often then don't know how to do it, right? And then it's something where even if you know what's wrong, what to do and how to do it, it's something where people oftentimes don't follow through. And that happens for several reasons, like a lack of a system to follow that will actually create this change that they want, a lack of accountability on taking action, and by not making the experience itself, like the actions in which you're taking, a satisfying one. And so even if you are someone who has checked all the previous boxes and you start to take the action, then it's something where it's like, I'm doing it, but like I hate it. Like I'm begrudgingly doing it. Like I'm doing it, but I still don't feel good. I still feel like crap. And I'm doing these things that are supposed to be making me feel better, but they're not. And I don't even want to do them. And it's still a really big chore. Then that could be something where it starts to manifest as you feeling like something's wrong with you, where like, well, I just can't do it. Like this just isn't for me. And it can really send you back down a shame slide that drops you back where you started or behind that, even further back. And so I know in the beginning, I told you that we were going to talk about why you are feeling like you are, which relates back to, when we boil it down, a lack of a sense of self. And I want to make sure that I uphold my end and also tell you what to do to take your life back. And there are 4 principles that I want to talk about to do this. So the first of all is you got to get back to you, right? There's a disconnect, a lack of, feeling like you are doing the things that are true to you. So you got to get back to yourself. So you got to take on some self-discovery. From there, you've got to acknowledge the evolution that got you here, right? Like we all have things in our past that are uncomfortable or embarrassing that we don't want to revisit. And at the same time, it's something where we have to come to terms with that. We have to accept that that is part of our story. Accept, by the way, does not mean that you are in agreement with, right? Accept just means that you acknowledge that's the truth of the matter. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it, but it's something where you're no longer using that energy to fight against the reality of like what is, so that you can then transmute it and use it for more productive things to become who you actually want, to figure out who you actually are. So self-discovery, evolution of what got you here. And then from there, you have to look at the vantage point that you have now arrived at to design the life that you want right here and right now, and what you want to look like moving forward. And so this is really giving you the opportunity to leverage what you've learned about yourself and your story, your evolution, to think about how you can use that information, whether that be, the things that you did like, the contrast between the things that you didn't like, to actually figure out what it is that's true to you right now in the life that you want to live and the life that you want to be moving toward in the future. And once you have all of that, the fourth principle is figuring out what your future focused formula for success is to keep you moving forward on the days when you just don't want to, because let's be honest, they happen. And so it's important that we establish the systems and structures that work for you that can keep you moving forward in that direction. And that we also take into account reflection, because, hey, what was true for you yesterday, what was true for you today might not be true for you tomorrow. And that is indicative of growth, right? So it's okay. And that happens. And so it's something where you need to make sure that you are building in reflection to your future focus formula so that you can actually make sure that you are continuing to progress forward in the direction that you actually want to go, right? We don't want to move full steam ahead for a year and then get to, the destination that we thought and turn around and be like, oh, actually, I should have hung a left like 6 months ago, kind of thing, or I should have veered to the right 3 months ago, kind of a thing. So you want to make sure that you're actually building in reflection to your future focus formula. So there are several ways in which you can do each of these. And what is going to work for you specifically is going to look different than what works for someone else, right? We are all our own individual people. And it's something where, this is the how part, right? Like what the concern is, what the problem is, what to do about it. But now it's like the how, like, how are you supposed to do this? And so, yeah, there are lots of different ways. There are lots of different combinations. Different things will work for different people. And, is this something that you can do by yourself? Sure. If you have a lot of time and a ton of motivation to keep throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what works. That means reading the self-help books. That means listening to the podcast. That means sifting through the information. And yeah, actually taking time to apply those things and all that good stuff. And then taking the time to reflect and see like what worked and what didn't. And I'm being honest, it's daunting. I know, because I did it. I took the time. It took me over a decade to figure out a system and structure that worked for me, that works for me. And one that I'm able to, adjust moving forward, because like the framework is still solid and still there, right? And so that framework is the same framework that I suggested to use in those 4 principles. And, like I mentioned, if you're like most, even if you are someone who is like, gonna do it myself, baby, then great. But it's probably gonna be something where the momentum will wear off, and chances are once that fades, you'll default back to where you were. And here's a fun fact for you. Research has shown that having an accountability partner can increase your chances of success by 95%, 95%, which is crazy, right? And awesome. So you're probably thinking now like, okay, cool, I'll call it my BFF, get them to help. But honestly, they're probably going to be in the same boat as you when it comes to going through all the podcasts, reading the self-help books, trying to figure out all the things to do and then apply them. And not only do they now have to do that for themselves, but they have to hold you accountable for it too. Like most people just don't have the tools and the resources and the bandwidth to do that. And so the reason that I'm bringing this up is because what I want to share with you is that I work with clients every single day using evidence-based techniques to create these systems and structures and strategies that work for them using the exact 4 principles that I that I spoke to you about earlier: self-discovery, evolution of yourself, a life redesign, and figuring out your future focused formula. I don't use some cookie cutter template. This isn't some PDF that I hand you and tell you, good luck, let me know how it goes. It's not me telling you to think positive and to, read mantras or affirmations. And it's not me offering you the latest trending life hack. What I do is I will work with you one-on-one using all that I've learned in my 10,000 hours and counting, 10,000 and counting hours coaching to help you stop feeling like you're in a funk, to stop feeling like it's Groundhog's Day, to stop feeling like you're living life on autopilot, to stop feeling like blah and meh and all those things that you don't want to feel anymore, to help you start being excited, to help you start feeling good about life, to help you actually start to move forward with purpose and with intention and with excitement to create and live this life that you are excited to wake up to every day. And I'm sharing this with you now because I work with a limited number of people at a time, because this is such a custom experience, because we do work one-on-one, and because I make myself available for them to help them figure out what works for them so that they don't have to spend a decade plus trying to figure this shit out by themselves, so that I can help them in that way. And so I'm sharing this with you now because I have one, two, three spots opening up for the next round of this transformative program to teach you this framework that I just shared about self-discovery, evolution of self, life redesign, and your future focus formula, known as the self system. We talk about systems in business, we talk about systems for our fitness and for our health, but we don't talk about systems for our lives and for ourselves. And so it's time that we start to do that. And so if you want to do that for yourself, if you want to take your life back and have a system to follow that can keep you moving forward, then let me know by tapping the link below or in my bio, and you will be able to get in touch with me and I will follow up soon. If you have any questions or comments, please do let me know, comment them, and I will be sure to answer. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, and I can't wait to talk to you soon. Bye.